Well, hey, everybody, and welcome to the Ryan Goodman Tanguay Along for the Ride podcast as we talk about the NBA. Okay, let's get to the Celtics game last night, which I'm just, as a Celtics fan, I'm heartbroken. I mean, this series could be over for Boston, Bob. I mean, it could be over. They had a chance to come back earlier, I believe, game 3, and when they rallied and they fell short. Last night, they're up 14 points, 12 points, excuse me. They're up 14 points, 2 minutes to go in the fourth. And they blew the game. I mean, they just blew the game. Did they blow the series?
Well, we don't know about whether they blew the series. The odds are that they did. They're down 3-2. They're going back to the other guy's gym. Okay, we know that. And history doesn't favor them. Although, and let me just cite, in '88, they lost game 5 at home to Atlanta. Went down to Atlanta. DJ had a monster game. They won game 6, and game 7 was the famous Larry Dominique shootout. No, I'm just saying. It's just, however.
That was a better – hey, they had Larry Bird.
They had Larry Bird, and it was a better – and that was a very good Hawks team. But anyway, here's what bothers me. 4 plays. 2 unforgivable, sloppy, no mindless turnover passes that led to baskets, that led to points during the course of the comeback. And B, the 2 putbacks. The one Giannis got with 4 Celtics around him. All right, that's Giannis. But there were 4 guys around him. And then, of course, the egregious putback of allowing a rebound of a missed free throw by Bobby Portis. Maybe any one of those, you subtract baskets and they win the game. They find a way to win the game. And now, you knew that sooner or later, you didn't know. You felt, and common sense told you that sooner or later that Milwaukee might hit a few threes. They're better than they had been showing. So that doesn't bother me that they hit those threes. But those self-inflicted wounds, this was a giveaway. Now, I'll shut up in a second. This is what why being a sports fan is unlike being an art fan or a literary fan or any other fan. There's nothing like it, okay? We are 1 game removed from a victory, a triumph on the road that we were proclaiming that if and when they were to win the championship this year, that's the game we look back on to tell what they were all about, right? 2 days later, we are now discussing in the morning after, Marie McGovern, the morning after. It's got to be a morning after. This is the morning after a game that, if in fact they go on to lose this series, we will cite as the day that it all fell apart. This is sports, folks. All right. So, but we're all destroyed. That game was totally theirs, totally winnable, totally in their grasp. And you salute Milwaukee and their gumption and all that, but that was a giveaway.
Yeah, I mean, things can change so quickly, as you said. And, I guess the most frustrating part for me, like the Bobby Portis play, listen, he got the offensive rebound because Smart collided with Jaylen Brown. It wasn't a lack of effort. It was a little bit of luck involved in that one. Giannis hitting the 3. There was nobody within 10 feet of him. All the 3 of us can make that 3. To me, it was the end of the game. I really felt like the Celtics had the ball. Jason Tatum had to go get that basketball. And I heard Marcus Smart say it after the game that, that was kind of everybody was standing around. So that's why he took it to the basket. That's why he got the ball in the first place. He wasn't supposed to get it. It was designed for Tatum, who was standing on the other side. He's got to go get it. He's got to go get it and demand the ball and say, you know what? We're going to win this or lose this with me. I'm the best player. And the other thing with Tatum is early in the year, you would say, okay, he'd get the ball and he'd jack up a 3 no matter what. Now he's proven, even with short time left, he could get the ball and he could find somebody for an easy basket if they double.
Yeah.
So I think you had to get Tatum the ball there, and I put it on him as much as I put it on Smart or Ime or anybody else. He's got to demand it in that situation.
And let's just, I'm flashing across my mind. You're 100% correct. But we do want to be fair. Great defensive play by Giroux. Great play as a helper. I mean, that was great. He is a tough guy. He's tough. He reminds me.
He's the key to me. He's what changed Milwaukee from just an ordinary playoff contender to making them a championship team. Without Jrue Holiday, they don't have a title and they're not in the hunt for another one. Again, I know everybody said, I tweeted it last night. I said that's the biggest difference in this team. Eric Bledsoe to Drew Holiday, and everybody's like, duh, of course. Yeah, but I don't think enough people understand the difference between Bledsoe and Holiday. Holiday brings every intangible, the highest of high IQ, great defender, high care, like all of it. Like Drew Holiday just fits what John Horst was trying to do with the Milwaukee Bucks, and so does Pat Connaughton. And so do some of the other ancillary parts that they've brought on to that locker room to kind of support Giannis. Middleton's like that. I mean, I know he's not playing, but he's like that.
Let's give Mike Budenholzer some credit, too, for making a decision the previous game. Portis watched the fourth quarter. And this game, he's playing in the fourth quarter. He made his adjustment, quote unquote, and it worked out to his benefit. So I'll give him credit there. But this is part of the playoffs. It's a series. Things happen. But the agony and the ecstasy that each side has shared. One game the Celtics are in the ecstasy and Milwaukee's the agony, and last night it was reversed. And who knows what's in store for us in Game 6? It stings right now. That definitely stings. This was
it just feels like last night was the opportunity to step on the throat, and when you have the defending champs and you let them up from the mat, it doesn't feel good.
No, this hurts. No, this is frustrating. When you're feeling so good, there was such a high after, and there were, and we see how good they can be when they play the quote right way, but things out, you make decisions in the moment that, as Jeff says, that they don't get the ball to the right guy at the right time. Whereas in Game 1 against the Nets, the thing worked beautifully, and they all did the right thing and ended up in a victory. And
the frustrating point is, I thought that they had reached a level of maturity where they would keep playing. Jaylen Brown was awesome in the third. And in the fourth quarter, everybody said, the game's over. Let's just forget about it.
Didn't you think when Al stuffed that rebound?
Yeah, it was over.
That was the exclamation point.
Right.
Absolutely. It was up 6, 2:12, I think it was to go. And the crowd going crazy. And then, the three is equal,
but also I understand what Jeff is saying where, Tatum's got to go get the ball. But also Marcus is your point guard, and I thought there were two bad decisions with Marcus. I mean, one was after Tatum took one from the elbow and he bricked it, then Marcus just goes to the basket and he turns over the basketball as opposed to running an offense. Now, I know he had to go to the basket and Holiday made a good play, but I thought it was all three of those plays. And I think that, yes, Tatum needed to show up. There's no doubt. But Marcus also, man, this guy had proved to us that he was a point guard and that he could run the offense and settle everybody down. And prior to that Drew Holiday play, the series before, he didn't do that. I think they just thought the clock was going to run out. They thought that Milwaukee was going to run out of time. And I put that on Marcus a little bit.
Well, the announcers caught it very well. I mean, the announcer about the tempo game and Milwaukee was playing up tempo all the time, and the Celtics did go into a watch the clock mode to a degree. And
right,
it could have been more aggressive offensively as the thing churned. A lot of ways to look at it, guys. It's like the Hindu man and the Hindu man.
Well, I think Bob, they blew it. I mean, to me, they blew it because
I said that at the outset.
Milwaukee stole it. Right? To me, you'd be like, Milwaukee stole that one.
Of course, but they're the defending champs, right? If you let the champ off the mat, you're in trouble. Now they're going home. Yeah. I mean, it's not looking good. But the one thing I can say is that I thought the Celtics were done in December.
If they lose, right? If they lose Game 6, and this is the end of the season, if you're a Celtics fan, you have to be happy with the way this season went.
I disagree.
Have to.
No. You out of your mind.
How can you not, looking at it objectively, say, hey, listen, we took major strides. We thought we might have to blow this thing up 3-4 months ago. Now we've got something to build on. Tatum has emerged as a legitimate top 5 player in the NBA. Horford's still got enough left in the tank. My big concern, I tweeted this yesterday, the greatest ability is availability, and our boy Robert Williams isn't on the court when it matters most, and it's over and over and over. And I know, again, people will say, well, he came back too quick. Great job. He came back, wanted to be on the court with a knee injury, this, that, and the other. It's just always something with Robert Williams that I just don't know if you can depend on the guy to be out there. If he can't be out there now, like, what good is this? He would be a game changer, what he can bring to the table.
You can't depend on him. But I do think that this is the one the Celtics let slip away if they don't come back, because the feeling was if they win this one, they're going to the finals.
But how is this not? How do you not look at it positively? Like, if you're a Celtics fan, I can't understand how you could be like pissed. I understand you could be upset because you had this series. But looking at it objectively in its totality this year, how can you not be excited about, hey, we're in it now. We didn't know if we'd be in it. We got a chance now looking forward. We add another piece, and maybe we are a championship contender because the league has changed too. Let's face it, there's no dominant team anymore. If you've got good chemistry, you stay healthy, and you add another piece, the Celtics can be right there again. Better.
Bob had a 20-second timeout.
Yeah, I got. Would not have made the automatic assumption, Gary, that if they won this series, that they were going to the finals, because I assume it's going to be Miami the next step up, and I have thorough respect for Miami, and I would not even have picked them to beat Miami. I would have considered it to be an upset. So that's why I'm not. I agree with Jeff that I don't expect a majority of Celtic fans to be happy about or be pleased with the season, because people, but I am. And I look at it this way too. Who you lose to. There's no shame in losing to the Bucks. There's no shame in losing to Giannis Antetokounmpo, who had a routine 40. That's how good he is.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm sorry.
There's no shame.
Come on.
And there would have been any shame in losing to Miami. I would have been upset losing to Philly, but if that would have happened, that's the way I look at it.
Well, this is the way. Okay, that's fine. And I'm sitting here and I'm saying, okay, they underachieved at the beginning of they underachieved last year. They got through the Kyrie mess. They underachieved this year. We were talking about firing the coach in December. They finally started to do their job and earn their paychecks, okay? And all they have to do is play hard for another quarter. That's all they had to do was play hard for another quarter. I mean, I'm sorry, maybe I'm just being a little too impatient, but it drives me crazy. I thought that they had matured to the point where they knew what they had to do. And obviously they haven't. That's what gets me.
They're not robots. We're going to talk about the other game that played last night as an example of whoa. I mean, this is sports. I'm sorry, it's not that simple. They're human beings. They have to. They're flawed. They're not perfect. Nobody. I mean, that's all. You can't look at it that way and make it and say that's the way it is. It's got to be the total thing. And once again, I'm going to restate: there's no shame in losing to the Milwaukee Bucks.
No, I mean they've got that championship DNA. Again, that's the one thing you still worry about with this Celtics team at the end of the game, right? Like you can do it. In the regular season over and over and over. You could do it against a Nets team that did have KD and Kyrie, but they were so flawed, especially in the defensive end. It was so easy to get points. But now when Milwaukee locks down, and I thought taking Grayson Allen off the court was huge because the Celtics were going at him at every turn. They had to get him off the court, putting either Portis or Connaughton, and I thought Pat played great last night. They've been there. They've done it. There's something to be said about that. In a very, very important game, really, series-defining, maybe championship-defining game last night. That again, I don't want to say the Celtics got tight, but there were some plays there where certainly they didn't make the right decisions. Right, Jaylen Brown threw the ball away.
Right
on that one play. As good as he was in the third quarter, and he is, that can be and not only was Jaylen Brown good for 3 quarters shooting the ball, especially in the third quarter, he was really good with his decision-making and his passing ability. Really, really, really good. And he's come so far in that regard, but then he makes that poor decision. And that, to me, is Jaylen Brown kind of in a nutshell a little bit. Like, he can be great at times, and then he can just look at him and be like, what are you thinking? But those are the plays Milwaukee didn't really make down the stretch. They made the right decisions.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to you wanted to talk about Golden State, Bob?
Well, I mean, I've watched a lot of NBA basketball in the last.
Yes, you have. So they're up 3-2 right now.
I know I have never been in a gymnasium or in front of a television set where a team was down 55, particularly a team as worthy as the Golden State Warriors. That is a shell-shocking score to me in the context of given the fact that that Memphis is playing without Morant. Now I know they had a good regular season record with Morant, but in this is a whole different animal now in the playoffs. That's one of the most shocking scores in the history of the NBA, in my opinion. The 134-95 in a closeout game for the Warriors. The Warriors, who I thought had come together, and presented themselves as a major threat, a very easy pick. I'm not saying they won't rebound, and they probably would. I'd love to hear those discussions today, but that's an astonishing score, guys. 134-95. They were down 55. 50 bleeping 5.
Without Ja. Give Memphis a ton of credit, Bob, because, you know, I'm not saying, I hate the phrase, well, they could have folded. Nobody's going to fold. Nobody's saying we don't have John Morant, we're not going to show up. It's the dumbest thing ever to say. But give them credit for, again, not only fighting with Golden State, but dominating them without arguably, I don't know, whatever, he's one of the best players in the game right now. Dylan Brooks coming off an atrocious game. Not bad. Atrocious. But they've got that type. We've talked about that this year with that group is they're kind of lunch pail guys. Nobody's giving most of those guys a chance. And they do fight you and they play tough and they're not going to give a shit that they don't have Ja. They're just going to try to figure out a way. And
that's become a really great home court.
Yes.
Too. It's become one of the better ones in the league right now. Crowd is really, 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 really into it there. They've never had this is a great, they've never tasted the wine, so in basketball. So it's really nice for them. And, but that I don't know so what do you make of it though? All right. The fact that Golden State collapsed so completely in a game, at a closeout game. I don't know what to make of it.
I'm shocked. The only thing I would say is
you go to the human thing again, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I was saying, so I'm anxious to, obviously, in both cases, our game and their game, I'm anxious to see the bounce back. Now, of course, they still have the advantage.
Right.
I mean, they still have.
Right.
Of course. No. And that's the thing with, is anybody going to remember this game in a year, 5 years, whatever? Did it matter? The only way it matters is if they end up probably winning the series or at least taking it to 7. And then you've got, this kind of nail biting game 7 that, because right now, let's face it, that game, all it did was prolong the series in most people's opinions. Yeah. Golden State will end up kind of, putting on them in game 6 and closing it out. But, again, maybe not. Maybe not. You never know.
No. Well, I love the reaction, that the Golden State guys led by Green were kind of, playing to the crowd at the end. Yeah, what are we going to do? You kicked our ass, and Green, basically said, you got to show some class, and in so many words.
Give them credit, right? Give them credit. They beat your ass.
Yeah. So there's that. Anyway, you're right. Let's commend Memphis. There's a lot to like about it. There's something about them. There's a je ne sais quoi spunk, and maybe it's the coaches, because people are starting to catch on to the fact that Taylor Jenkins is a pretty good coach.
Listen, Tyus Jones going in there for John Morant. Is there a better backup point guard in the NBA? 21 points, 9 assists, 0 turnovers, Bob. 0 turnovers. Tyus Jones is like the perfect backup point guard because he can make shots. He runs the team. He makes good decisions. He was terrific last year.
That's what Cameron Payne did that a little bit last year. Yeah. When they needed it.
Yep.
And so this time it's Tyus Jones. Well, that's that. So here we are.
Let's move on to the MVP. And Jeff, I'll start with you. Your thoughts on Jokic?
I mean, you can't argue it. You could, if you want to go Joel Embiid, I'm not going to go after you for it by any means. I thought both guys were terrific. And, I would say this. I would say that Jokic without Murray this year, without Porter this year, what he did, and it just, they're both just so good all around, big guys. It's hard. You don't want to saying anything disparaging against Embiid because he was so great and he plays with that kind of, that fire to him. And he's controlled his emotions a whole lot more this year, stayed healthy for the most part. I honestly, I think you're splitting hairs here.
Yeah, I would have voted for Embiid myself. I'm an Embiid guy, Bob.
Well, and then, of course, you got the other guy, the best player in the game, and into Taekwondo. And there's no reason you couldn't vote for him either, except that after a while, guys get to the point where people want to share the wealth, and the voters think about that. We went through that, and Jordan probably should have won 10. But it's Charles had a good year. Let's give it to him. Oh, Carl had a good year. Let's give it to him.
Right.
And I think on the Taekwondo has reached that status already and is going for a third. All right. I could easily, I'm with Jeff. I could easily make the devil's advocate argument for any of the three. The negative, the nitpick I might make on Embiid is he missed, he played 68 games. And, now Bill Walton, I looked it up. You know how many games he played when he won it in 77, 78? 58. He missed 24 games, and people decided he was still so much the guy. And of course, they were 50-10 that year as defending champs when he got hurt. And then by the time they got to the playoffs, I think they were missing 4 starters. Portland. But Walton won it with a guy has won it with 58, and you could make an argument therefore that Embiid deserved to win it with 68. Here's the tiebreaker. If I'm going to go the other way, though, Embiid is a two-way player. I mean, his defense was his calling card before he showed us he could make a three and do all these things. Whereas Jokic, nobody's claiming he's a defensive whiz of any kind, right? No. And it's all about the offense for him, and it's extraordinary offense. There's no question. Whereas Embiid, it's about both. So you can make the argument, a two-way player versus a more disproportionately emphasis on the offense. But what Jokic does, he's the best passing big man since Walton, and maybe better than Walton, or at least he's at least as good. The one thing Walton did was throw outlet passes, but nobody throws outlet passes anymore. So that's a hidden art, a dying art. They're all great players, and I mean I love watching all three of them. And I just think that Embiid's got to get over it. Now, I disagree with Charles Barkley. The other night, he was making a big point. He was blaming Embiid's performance on sulking.
I love Chuck. I love Chuck, but that was ridiculous.
It's not ridiculous. That wasn't what was going on. The guy's dealing with a face mask. No one wants to play with a face mask, okay? No one has ever wanted to do it, whether it was Kareem. Larry had to wear one that time when he got hit by Harvey Catchings for 18, got on the cover of Sports Illustrated with the face mask.
Didn't Wedman have one for a year?
Yeah, I mean, and of course, our boy from UConn played.
Rip Hamilton.
Yeah, Rip played 1-1, but he got hit again, and I mean, he's dealing with really serious physical problems right now, and for you to criticize him on the basis of you think he's sulky in the middle of the game because he didn't get MVP, you wonder what goes through Charles' head sometimes. We all want to like Charles, but come on, Charles.
I know that he's so entertaining. He'll get a lot right, but when he's wrong, he can be way, way wrong.
Yeah. So
go big or go home, Barkley.
That's right.
Okay, now this is Bob's chance to take center stage. I remember this player when I first started watching basketball. Jeff, I'm a little bit older than you, but Bob Lanier, and when I remember him, of course, the Bonnies, right? St. Bonaventure. Mm-hmm. And then with the Pistons and then under the Bucks, but was the size 22 shoe. That was the thing with Bob Lanier. And I always look Bob Lanier and like Nate Thurman were kind of like centers that they didn't get the ring, but they were definitely great big men, didn't get the ring like Jabbar or Parrish or, certainly didn't that type, but I mean, Lanier was a great player.
I first encountered Bob Lanier when he was a sophomore at St. Bonaventure because in 1968, Boston College happened to draw St. Bonaventure in the first round NCAA tournament game, played at Keeney Gymnasium in Rhode Island, at University of Rhode Island. I broadcast that game for the student radio station, sitting on the stage behind the basket. Wow. And they beat us. And he wasn't the reason they beat us. Bill Butler was, but he played well, but he was Bob Lanier. 2 years later, they were 23-2 that year, by the way. Then 2 years later, they are in the Final Four, and he's by far the biggest reason. But they enter it without him. He was injured in a freak accident at the waning seconds of the regional final game against Villanova, where they were kicking Villanova's butt. Chris Ford, ironically a future teammate, got rolled up into him and he tore his MCL. He was not available for the Final Four. They put up a heroic battle against Jacksonville with nobody over 6'5" in the lineup, and they lost a competitive game. But obviously, they had no chance. I, among many, believe they could have beaten UCLA that year. Wow. That was the Steve Patterson center year, the in-between year between Kareem and Walton. And they were better than Jacksonville with him. He's a better player than Gilmore, period. Get that in your head, folks. And anyway, so that's why I counted. Bob Lanier, by the way, in a bountiful draft, 1970, a draft that included Pete Maravich, Rudy Tomjanovich, Dave Cowens, and in the second round, Calvin Murphy and Tiny Archibald. Wow. In the second round, okay? He was the number one pick in the draft, Bob Lanier. Now, Bob Lanier was a bountiful era for centers, guys, in the 70s. Think about it. Kareem was in his prime. Cowens went up to win 2 rings. Nate Thurman, Willis Reed, Wes Unseld, and then in the other league, Dan Issel, Mel Daniels, Artis Gilmore. Later on, Bill Walton, Moses Malone.
Wow.
This is the centers that played in the 70s, folks. Real old-fashioned, as Al McGuire would say, aircraft carrier centers. He was up there right with them all. He was a 20.10 guy career, okay? By the way, he was 27-15 career at Bonnie's. And he was a wonderful player. Now, here's what, you're right about the feet. That's what was just, people think about the size 22s. Their pair of are bronzed. They're in Springfield. You go out to the Hall of Fame, you'll see the bronze size 22s. And that's what so many people remember. Here's what I remember. I've seen all the players of the last 60 years of any consequence. I've seen all the big men, and fortunately, all of them in person. And he's 6'11" and listed 270, a big man. I mean, a big man, not big. And he's the most graceful big man I have ever seen. He moved with elegance. He didn't have rushed movements. Here's what I always said about Bob Lanier, and I'll shut up, get off the soapbox. Were I a cartoonist, or if I could hire one, I could hire my old friend Larry Johnson. Here, Larry, I want you to give me a cartoon of Bob Lanier. Here's what I want. I want him taking a hook shot. I want him gracefully taking a hook shot. But instead of his nose, I want an elephant's trunk. And I want him dressed in a tutu. And I want it to be called the ballerina elephant. And that's a compliment, because I've never seen a man that big carry himself with such physical elegance on the court. I mean, that's what I most remember about Bob Lanier, is the way he moved at that size. It was no one else like him. And postscript, what a wonderful man. A beloved man. He was an NBA global ambassador for 30 years. People in the Phoenix area will tell you tales. I did a podcast this morning with a Phoenix guy Brad Sesnick, who tells me about, he knew Bob and from his family days in Phoenix and coaching youth basketball. Everybody loved Bob Lanier, the Dauber. We all knew him in the NBA community as the Dauber. One more little personal anecdote. There was a writer in Chicago, Bob Logan. He was the man on the Chicago Tribune for the great Bulls teams of the 70s. And he used to get us confused. Bob Logan, Bob Ryan, and we used to have fun with that. But this is in the days when you go out drinking with these guys,
Right.
I had more than a few beers with Bob Lanier. So I am very saddened. But the NBA community lost one of its all-time great people, as well as one of the great players, Hall of Fame player, Bob Lanier.
Well said, Bob, and I think a fitting ending to our program today. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. And hopefully we'll be talking about the Celtics next week. But
stirring comeback.
Man, I can't believe you two, the pillars of optimism. All right. Yeah. I'll talk to you boys. See you.
All right, guys. That was fun.
Guys.